So you both, are kind of, in terms of like the ethics of your, labels and everything, kind of more from like kind of like a DIY kind of background, really kind of embracing that kind of approach. But yet you're both kind of involved with education in a way. So I was just kind of curious how you guys kind of reconcile or balance those kind of approaches, where it's like one kind of instilling like conventions potentially into a student, even if you're trying not to, versus kind of that, kind of experimenting and fumbling your way into developing your own voice.
I think they're both related, actually. That's like the thing that makes me want to teach, is like trying to figure out the way to help people find their own voice rather than like trying to tell them how to do it. Like I'm really interested in that, like keeping it from just being indoctrination, right, and just having like encouraging somebody to do what they want to do, which is hard because it's like some people don't know what they want to do and they're coming into it trying to figure out what they want to say. But experimentation, I think, is the way to do that.
Yeah, I think me and you come from the generation, and obviously many people before us, but probably 2 generations before us, it was more of like an apprenticeship thing for cartooning, where you get in, you do an apprenticeship, and you learn like X, Y, and Z. This is the way you do things, and you learn that from a professional.
Yeah.
Whereas now they have classes for it, and how do you teach or try and let people know the things that you had to figure out on your own at the same time, like, because that stuff's helpful, like nuts and bolts, like you don't have to fight your way through this. Here's what I learned about this, you take it and do whatever you want with it.
Totally.
But versus like, here's how to get over some of these hurdles and still do exactly the kind of comics that you'd want to do. I mean, everything's going to boil down to a certain amount of DIY in the end anyway, because whatever you learn, you're going to have to take it and find a way to implement it.
I think a lot of the best cartoonists, like we both learned from, were DIY, even in like Wally Wood was self-publishing his own anthology in the 60s and 70s, and it's like, I don't know when Wits End started, actually.
I've never seen Wits End.
70s, I think. But and a lot of those guys like that we both looked up to, like they learned through just like, through like trying things out and finding out what didn't work. I don't know, I think you can still teach that in class. Like I think you can give people a lot of different like tools and a lot of different techniques and stuff like that, and then just say like any of these is okay, my favorite thing, like years ago I taught a class in San Francisco, and one of my favorite parts was I had them watch How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way, the video cassette. And the whole time I just like talked shit about Stan Lee and said, look at John Buscema, like watch him, because he's totally like laughing under, you could see him like
almost
smile.
Like rolling his eyes, like Stan's like, and blah blah blah. He's like,
And it's funny because that whole book is drawn in a way that John Buscema doesn't naturally draw. He draws way looser than that, and you can kind of see like how the flaws in like that whole idea of like teaching somebody this rote method of like, this is how you make a comic book, because the truth is like everybody has their own like bizarre variations on it.
So when I was kind of thinking about comparing you guys as like publishers, it seemed like almost kind of like a Venn diagram where you guys obviously have a lot of overlap, but at the same time, like there's things that you do, Zach, that Dylan doesn't do, and vice versa. And is there anything about kind of what Zach does or what Dylan does that appeals to you? Like, for example, like
let me start. I love Sparkplug. I think Dylan does. I'm really was thinking about it driving here, and it's like I'm like proud of you for Sparkplug. I mean, I don't mean that in any sort of like, because we were doing the same. I mean, me and Dylan met. It's what, 16 years ago?
Longer, I think.
So,
I want to say.
Through zines, and just like I'm totally. I'm happy with what Lamano does, and I'm proud of everything that I've done in Lamano. What Dylan has done with Sparkplug, I think, is just astounding. I mean, he's put out these incredibly like beautiful books by these fantastic artists who are doing exactly what they want, and I think Dylan's the thing that I wish that I had.
Shit.
What's that?
You gotta talk some shit though. Come on. Sorry.
Later.
Okay, good.
I think the thing that I wish that I was better at, is I think Dylan is a better I think you really run a tight sort of business ship. and that for a lot of people that is pejorative or something, and I think you're really smart and ethical about the way you run Sparkplug. You know, where Lamano is kind of like, I love this thing, let's throw it against the wall and see if it sticks, you know, and but it's more of a labor of love than something that's yeah.
I feel it's funny because I feel like Lamano does all this stuff that I wish I could do, and like the idea
a half a book a year. You wish you could do that?
Sometimes I think like slowing down is better. I think it's better to do like one thing right than do like 20 things and do them all like half-assed, which is how I always feel like I'm doing everything. But I was gonna say like the having like a printing press and like, you know, understanding the printing process in general is something that I feel like I need to do, and it's like it's like I got on a treadmill and I was trying to do all this other stuff and I didn't get a chance to do the things that like I think are most fun for me, and like so I spend all this time now like going to the press and like talking with the press guys and stuff like that. But it's like, I mean, the part of printing that I like, part of making comics that I love is like the like ink getting on the paper somehow, and like that whole process is like something I feel like you're really like involved with like on a personal level, and it's like I think that's like really, I don't know, that's the art of making books, you know, instead of just churning out a product. Like I think bigger presses than both of us like kind of tend to do that, where it's just like they're filling up pieces of paper with art rather than like making something that stands, you know, as an art thing on its own. I don't know.
Thanks.
The only things I have a hard time with are like actually like promoting things and stuff like that. That's the hardest part.
I agree. And I think we also both come from that a little bit, where it's our generation too, before the saturation of computers and that culture, where there was this more culture of like, you just do this thing and you do this great thing and people eventually will sort of find out about it, you know? And it was this sort of less intrusive maybe process or something that we were used to. And now it's like everybody in the world is able to do something on their own. And really, it's like if you don't take care of your shit in terms of promotion or whatever, like it's incumbent upon you to let people know that you've done this thing, you know. And hello.
Hi.
Sorry, not this room.
Okay.
Who?
I don't know. Dan the accordion.
Oh, he's up on the third floor. I think like even in your sort of mission from the very beginning, you've been more about that sort of giving. I found that the people on Lamano that I end up putting out, and this isn't on purpose, but it's almost always people who have the urge. Like if they didn't do it with me, they'd do it someplace else. You know, it's like it's a collaboration with people who already have this kind of DIY. It's not people who are like, I need someone to publish me. It's people like, I did this thing. And I'm like, I love your thing. Do you want to, you know? Whereas I think with Sparkplug, it is a little bit.
It's gotten complicated like lately. I really feel like I'm kind of in love with self-publishing and like encouraging people to self-publish, and I almost would rather not publish people and just encourage them to make their own shit. And I feel like that's like, I don't know, I mean I really like publishing people, but I feel like there's so much to be gained from self-publishing right now, and it's like, and there's so many people who want to do comics now compared to like, you know, 10 years ago. I think there were still a lot of people, but it was harder to get, you know, access to ways to make comics, and there wasn't as, you know, there weren't as many conventions and stuff like that. And I think now like that's what I'm really interested in, is like helping people figure out ways to make their own comics, because you end up making more money if you do it yourself. I feel like, or it's like you can do smaller runs and like you get more of the percentage of the profits and things like that, but at the same time like there are people who just like I think in some ways like I do get the opposite side, where I like getting the like eccentric person who like doesn't want to publish themselves and doesn't have a handle on like how to make a project or a book, and like I like getting something that, you know, like is, you know, they're doing for themselves and then getting it. But I feel like you do that kind of too. Some of the books you do are more like, you know, like I don't know if anybody would see the Kim Deitch, like those kind of things without like somebody, you know, getting it out there like
Right.
you. So
Well, it hasn't happened yet.
yeah.
But no, and I even disagree with you a little bit, because it's, I mean, you look at someone like Chris Silla, who's
Yeah.
do a book. It's not like Chris wouldn't do stuff
it's
on his
true.
own. I mean,
Yeah,
he's done stuff on his own
Yeah,
for 12,
That's
15 years.
totally
It's
true.
just kind of providing a different, and it's not like he's not going to again, you know,
Yeah.
self-publish. But it's like for this opportunity he took, like he's going to do this thing with Sparkplug. He's going to do this one long narrative piece,
Yeah.
and he fucking, you know, he had this opportunity to do something different, and he took that
Yeah.
opportunity and did something that I don't think he ever. I don't know. He wouldn't have done that. You know, I think I don't know if he would have done that story in the same way if it would have been a self-published
Yeah,
story. You know, it really.
I love that, like encouraging people to do like kind of like eccentric projects that they might not have taken on their own. Like that part is so much fun, and it's like because there's two of us, like that way it takes some of the stress off of him. Like in Chris's case, you know, I helped him with scanning, but he like pretty much learned how to scan through doing this book. I mean, he already knew, but he
Scan
really
for production.
yeah, for production, and it's like. That part was really fun. And I feel like now he could just do the book on his own next, which is fun. But yeah, I think there's such a mix. I think both of us, like the thing is, like we both publish stuff that we love. Like
Yeah.
that's the common thread, and I think that's kind of like where. I don't know. I think that if you look at like any small publisher, that's really what they're doing. Even if there's like some glorious mission statement or something like that, basically all of the small publishers, like they're just publishing stuff that they like Secret Acres now is doing stuff, and some of it's like really successful and some of it's not, but they love all of it like the same amount, and it's like, and I think that's a key thing.
Totally. I agree.